All right, we are here. This is the first episode of the year for Talking Shizzle. What is up, Paul?
Oh, so good to be the first one. It's so good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's what are we? January 7th.
Mm.
Well into the first week of the year, and it's feeling good for me so far. How about you?
It's feeling good. It's feeling good. The sun is out there. It feels like a threshold time for sure. New beginnings.
Yeah, definitely. It's really snowy where I am right now, but like nice and sunny, and it's just I don't know,
Hmm.
the air feels fresh. It's good. I like it.
We are right along the Washougal River in Washington, and I was just out last night before going to bed and noticed that I could finally see a little bit of moonlight bouncing off the water. We've just been so socked in the Northwest with constant rain, so it's
Yeah.
good to have that fresh new light for the year.
That's great. Well, hey guys, we're here today with Paul Kuthe. He is a friend and fellow StoryBrand coach and small business coach. Paul, we actually met in person not that long ago at the
In
Business Made
Nashville.
Simple and StoryBrand Summit in Nashville,
Yeah.
and it just clicked. And I thought I
So
got to
fun.
have you on the show to talk about some of the things that were coming up in our conversation.
It is so fun to be able to connect with folks like you. It's one of my favorite parts about being connected with StoryBrand and being a coach and traveling to that event is just connecting with folks from all over the world, really, like yourself,
Mhm.
who get it and who are out there helping businesses every day.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love it too, and I get a lot of energy from it. So tell me a little bit, let's before we get into the meat of today, we want to talk about a lot of like entrepreneurial myths.
Mm.
Tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about your business and like what you coach, what areas of coaching you specifically really like to get into with your clients.
Oh yeah, it's been 10 years now. I've been in business
Wow.
coaching folks, and I really got my start in the world of athletics. I was a professional kayaker before this, and so I really dove deep into human performance and the psychology behind coaching and learning theory, and just fell in love with transformation. And so when I decided
Mm,
it was time to take my adventures into the boardroom, into businesses, I had already been promoting some pretty big time national brands in the outdoor industry
mhm,
and really telling stories and being a part of a community that was sort of living an integrated work life style as it was.
mm,
And when my business started to move more into the indoor space, kind of Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, it was a beautiful thing because I could take my family and my kids out on all the adventures that I was used to taking other people out on. And it really turned into what started as kind of an executive coaching, life coaching for business owners sort of business, into a full-fledged business coaching, full service package of really working with leadership and developing the story from within the business to how do
mhm,
we communicate that and position ourselves in the marketplace, which is where a lot of the
mm,
marketing and story brand sort of coach materials really entered the business for me, and then really looking at the overall operations and how do we keep people motivated around the culture of what it is we're
mhm,
doing. And underneath all of that is storytelling and the message
yeah.
behind what it is we're trying to accomplish in the marketplace.
Okay, so I can't help but think about this. You've probably seen this Instagram reel a lot. It's out there.
Mm.
It's that kayak that's going. Have you seen
Well, it's
it's
hard because my
the one of
Instagram feed is full of kayaks
it's
being
like
in this world, but
yeah.
tell me more.
Well, there's this one where it's like this guy in a
Mountain.
kayak, and he's, like, just going in this ridiculous rapid, and
That's
he's
Dane
flying
Dane
all over the
Jackson.
place,
Yeah, yep.
and it's like, this is what it's like to be a small business owner.
It's coming at you quick. The river presents so many good metaphors for life and business. There was a lot of the same. I mean, you're just as committed. You're going off into a blind horizon line. You're in what feels like a critical environment where if you make the wrong turn, certain death is waiting for you around every corner. It feels that way,
Yeah,
right? In business sometimes,
yeah,
and all the while you're needing to stay composed, needing to make the best choices. You don't get a
yeah,
second chance to go back upstream and catch that wave again. And so, yeah, it can feel that way, like you're just going a million miles an hour. I get it.
yeah. Well, now I think maybe you're the man behind that, reel that I've seen many times, and I
I wish I was
never
the man
like,
on that boat. That was a
it might be
fantastic.
you. It
He's
might
a
be you.
buddy. He's a buddy of mine. Dane Jackson's probably one of the top two or three kayakers in the world, if not the very top. And
Oh,
I'm glad.
really?
I'm glad to know him and have gotten to paddle with him when he was just a little guy. When I
Yeah.
was running an event out here in Oregon, him and his dad came out, and they of course won the entire event, and it was really fun to be able to watch his whole career progress. And yeah, I feel like he's in
Wow.
some sort of viral clip about every week or two.
Okay, well, now I know a lot more about that than I ever did before. Before I always just thought it was funny.
Yep, there you
Now I
go.
know a friend of a friend for, like the guy in that clip.
You
It's a
could
classic line.
you come out here. We'll take you on a kayak lesson with Dane.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I'm a swimmer, but I don't know. I've always been kind of scared of kayaks. The
All
whole, like,
kayakers
being
are
stuck
swimmers. We're all
in.
between swims. We're all gonna, it's just one of those
Yeah,
metaphors for life as well. The kayaker terminology is, or the saying is, that we're all just between swims. In kayaking, you try
okay.
your best to stay in the darn thing. So if you swam, you mean you did something wrong. But many business owners find themselves swimming next to their kayaks as opposed to sitting in them.
Yeah,
And metaphorically speaking, it helps to have a coach or someone else there to help pick them up, put you back in, and
yeah.
keep you going downstream.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good segue into the first thing I wanted to talk to you about. So,
Mm,
one of the things you were telling me previously in a conversation was that work-life balance for the entrepreneur, the modern
yeah.
entrepreneur, is a myth.
It's a cruel myth
Let's
that crushes
talk about
dreams
what you
and
mean by that.
morale every day. Yeah, well, there's a lot of problems wrong with it. And one of the things I write about in Activate Your Life is the importance of a goal story. And I always have
Mhm,
clients write a goal story, a very vivid first person depiction of a future state that they want to be in. And
mhm,
it's a practice that really gets your mind there and starts laying those kind of pre-neural pathways for what you're looking
mhm,
for, and setting that sort of reticular activating filter in your brain, and puts it out there to the universe. And I always encourage clients to write an integrated goal story, not just
mhm,
work goal story, not just a goal story about your life, but to bring them together, because that's the reality of it. We don't have separate work life lives anymore.
mhm,
It's sort of a it's sort of an out of date paradigm from a time where the factory whistle blew and you could check out and leave your work at work. And when you went home,
mhm,
they were completely separate. And I think one of the cruel things about it is it sets up this false dichotomy of, well, one sucks, one's good, and hopefully they balance each other out. And it just it
yeah,
shouldn't be that way, right? Work and life could both be really amazing. And in that same way, they don't always have to be separate in the traditional sense. Now, with technology, it can be that you can work when you need to work, and integrated that into your
mhm,
lifestyle even more than you used to be able to. And in my professional kayaking days, my work and life were the same. I was literally living in a van
mhm,
down by the river, right? And so there
mhm,
was no separation from that. And there's some things you have to be careful of with that. It takes building really good boundaries and really having good communication with your people you share your life with, and it takes planning ahead and using your time in an intentional way. But I think the idea of work-life balance is so tenuous and so delicate that something shifts and suddenly it's out of balance, and that's a bad thing.
mhm.
And I don't know if you've ever seen a teenager move or grow, like
Oh,
it,
I've got one in my house.
right? How
Yeah,
balanced are they, like physically
yeah.
or emotionally? They're not, but so they're growing. They're growing and
Mhm.
improving and changing. And isn't that what we all want? They're transforming. And that's what stories are really
Yeah.
all about. And so sometimes in transformation, there is an inherent need for imbalance for things to grow. And so maybe work-life integration is a better goal for us to
Okay.
strive for, as opposed to balance.
How do you think about that then? Okay, so, like, what does
Mm,
work-life integration mean to
mhm.
you?
Yeah. I mean,
Because
for
I could
me,
go in a lot of different places with
it
it.
could, and it could mean something a little different for everybody, but for me, it means everything from including my family in business decisions and
Mm,
explaining to my kids and wife at whatever level makes sense to them what it is that I'm going through in a business
mhm,
context, and also sharing a little bit of my life with clients or with fellow business referral partners. And
mm,
when you go out on that fun river trip or camping trip, do you invite that work friend with the family as well, and try to integrate your lives and try to bring some of that social gathering time together as well? It might look like communicating to my wife my goal story, and reading her my goal story so
mhm,
that she understands why I have to go in early to record a podcast or stay a little bit late
Mhm.
and help a client who's having a hard time, because you know what? It serves that goal, that shared story that we both really want. And so
Yeah.
I think for me, the work-life integration piece is having a successful and growing an integrated goal story that is congruent with what you really want and authentic, so that
Yeah.
when you're there and you achieve it, you actually feel fulfilled, which is something
Yeah.
everyone's really hard at doing. We're not so great at knowing what's going to make us happy later. We think we do, but we're
Yeah.
so yeah, those things, bringing those
Okay.
that healthy integration in, so that you can have successful, fulfilling areas in both life and business, and not have to have them completely separate and alien from one another.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig that. I saw another coach recently talking about how, like cut the chit chat at the beginning of meetings, just get right into it with clients. And like, to be
Mhm.
honest, there was a part of me while I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, maybe I do chit chat a little bit. I could get right into the work. But then I'm like, no, I
Mhm.
actually think it builds like a friendship with your client.
Mm.
Getting to know people, you don't have to go into all the gory details of your personal lives with clients,
Yep.
but I also think that there's a level of friendship that is important
Mm.
in building strong and long-lasting working relationships. Like, a lot of my best friends are people that I have met in my professional world who
100%.
I wouldn't have known otherwise, and I got to know them through work,
Yeah.
and we're great friends, and we work together too. So I
Yeah.
just think that there's, like, this, like, people who feel like they have to be so separate, but you don't have to intertwine every little piece about it, but I definitely
Right.
think too, like, there's a healthy balance of, like, it's okay to talk to your clients about, like, their personal lives and to be friends with them, like, that's
Mhm.
probably a good thing.
Mhm.
I think it's a good thing.
Relationships are so key. People work
Yeah.
with people they know. And so if you're
Yeah.
gonna really know somebody, you're gonna know different parts of their world, not just their work. And,
Right.
if you look at story, right, we're both passionate about story and story brand, and why does it work? Well, stories
Yeah.
move us on an emotional level, and so if you're not going to dive in and connect with somebody on an emotional level, the chances of you persuading anybody or inspiring anybody or having any sort of action shift or change or teach anybody anything
Mhm.
without that, it really reduces that impact. And so
Mhm.
it's important. It's important to know the
Yeah.
story behind what someone's trying to accomplish on a deeper level, because you'll know what motivates their true actions and behaviors on a level that's
Mhm.
maybe even outside of their awareness.
Yeah. Ding, ding. Exactly. I like that. So, okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper. I'm
Ooh,
looking over my notes here because I want to talk to you about how do you use the power of story to fuel your biggest goals? So, I
right.
think this is relevant as we talk about any sort of professional or life
Mhm,
goals, not just like brand goals, because we think about story a lot of times with story brand. But
yeah.
let's talk about any goal. How do you use story to help
Mhm.
fuel that?
Yeah, so there's an interesting positional shift that happens with the story, right? We are really strong advocates for people playing the guide in the story
Mhm.
and finding heroes to serve and solve their problems and help them win the day. But this is a chance, a rare chance for you to position yourself in this story as the hero. When we're setting goals and we're thinking about our own story and our own path, we can sometimes fall into what story creators call the narrative void. That narrative
Mm,
void is sort of when you get caught watching the credits roll on a film, and then the credits wrap up and you're still just sort of sitting in the theater awkwardly waiting for
mm,
the next story, but really you're just in the way of the guy cleaning up the popcorn, and you need to move on to another story. And it happens at
mm,
different points in life. It happens in our teen years when we're not sure what to do with ourselves. It happens later in life, maybe when we've hit the typical career goals,
mhm,
but now what? And so the importance of having a goal story for me is always having a purposeful narrative to play into. Our brains need it. We need it for our emotional
mm,
health. And so, what if we took this power of story and this power to move ourselves emotionally, what if we use that for our own goal setting and intention setting? And so
Mm,
when I was asked to contribute to the book, Activate Your Life, and we wanted to get the best exercise we could out of every coach, there's 50 different transformational exercises in there, and it ended up doing really well, I think, because there's exercises like this that have a strong impact. And what we would ask people to
mm,
do is write that goal story, write that narrative, that first person perspective story out into the future as though it's happening now, and bring in all of those emotional moves, all of those sensory elements that really help bring you into that place. Uh, Both in the process of creating that story, it does important things psychologically for setting our intentions and puts your brain to work creating that story. It
mhm,
creates cognitive dissonance, right? You have this vivid depiction of a story out in front of you, and now your brain works on making that your reality. But we also pair that with an important exercise that's come out in neuroscience in the past 10 years, with a gal named Gretchen, who's done a bunch of research around the importance of correct goal setting and not getting caught only imagining the outcome or destination. We actually need to think of this like athletes. When I was training athletes before on the water, we would think about the hardest part of the race, the most challenging
mhm,
move, the crux spot, and we would imagine how tired we would be, what that area would sound like, what it would feel like, all the sensory elements, and we would imagine and run through mental rehearsal of hitting the move anyway, doing the hard
mm,
stuff, digging deeper right at that moment instead of quitting, so that when you get to that moment
mm,
in reality and you want to quit, you've already rehearsed not quitting and going through that
mm,
action. And by setting that goal story and looking at what she calls whooping our goals, wish and outcome, WO, that's sort of the
mm,
intention setting and the goal story itself. You want to
mhm,
vividly imagine what you want to happen and the outcome there. But you also need to look at obstacles and plan the second half of whoop.
mm,
The
mhm,
obstacle is usually the obstacle within. It's not that external thing. It's that, what's that really holding you? You want to quit. Maybe you have self-doubt. Maybe you, whatever it is, that's your obstacle within. What's your plan for addressing that when you inevitably will hit it when it gets hard?
mm,
And so if
mm,
you do those two things, create a goal story, share that with somebody, right? That creates accountability and support. It also mentally gives you another chance to rehearse it and go there. But then share with that person the obstacle and the real opportunity for transformation within that story. Because as
mm,
you're the hero of that story and you're imagining this, you get to transform in some way. And it's to overcome that obstacle within.
mm. I like this perspective. Brene Brown talks a lot about the stories we tell ourselves,
Oh
where
gosh, we
like this,
believe
like,
everything
but
we
it's
think.
more, yeah, it's more like the negative stories we tell ourselves. And I
Yeah.
like this. This is like writing the right story
Mhm,
for your
mhm.
mind,
And I think
and
there's
I,
a lot of power in the visual aspect of this. Vision boards work
mhm,
for a reason. There's a lot of reasons to create, but in something that involves multiple senses and expanding on it.
mhm,
So I love to have clients write a story and then share it with somebody, make a visual depiction of it so it's present and up in front
yeah,
of you. Make a little video about it, right? Like these days, you can
yeah,
do more and more with video. Create that goal story in the future. The result in the actual video or the story or the vision board is fine. It's great to have. The
yeah,
process of building it is what makes your brain work on it. And so that's
yeah,
got the real impact of setting that brain of yours working on closing the gap between the
yeah.
reality and what that story really looks like.
Yeah. I just came up with, I'm gonna send you one of these, you might like it too, the,
Yep,
manifestation checkbook. Like,
absolutely.
thinking about how we have these, like, bank accounts, like,
Yep.
goal-oriented bank accounts, and one of them is, like, writing these different types of checks to yourself, to
I love
then,
that.
like, put it in front of you every day, and to, like, create the mental connection to the action that needs to happen to make the
Yes.
things happen that you're writing those checks to yourself too.
Oh, right. I love that. Yeah. There's a really fun story about um who's it, Jim Carrey, I think, wrote $1 million
Mhm.
check to himself when he started his acting career, right? And it's one of those manifesting things of just
Yeah.
before I think he that he signed his big $1 million deal for the first time. He was able to take that thing out of his wallet and actually cash it for himself. But it's something about putting it into the universe.
Yeah.
It makes it real, and sharing that with other people, whether you keep it real quiet or you put it
Mhm.
out there to a bunch of folks to hold yourself more accountable.
Yeah.
The going there and the really
Yeah.
vividly imagining it, I think, is where the real
Yeah.
power is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Alright, so let's talk about how to stop managing time. Okay, this
Mm,
kinda goes back into the, like, work-life myth, I think, a
a
little
little bit.
balance myth, a little bit.
It brings them together, right? Because you have this goal
Yeah,
story you wanna make happen, but there's the reality day to day of, well, how do you go and do that?
yeah. You told me that you think managing time is not even a thing,
No, it's
but
not.
it's more about, like, how do we think about our time? Like, what are we investing time in?
Mm. Time just is, right? I mean, you can go deep
Mm,
on this and debate whether time's a constant or that's a fabric thing, or you like, woo, go to YouTube if you wanna like completely melt your brain for a few hours to figure out what exactly time is. But if you can't even figure out what time is, how are you gonna manage it? But we can
yeah,
invest it, and we can think about it intentionally, and we can use this resource, which is so valuable, right? We can't make more of it. You can't buy it back. How do we use this in the most purposeful and beneficial way to make our goals and our stories real? And
mhm,
um, I had a long time sort of progression of building out a system over the years. I know there's a lot of great planners out there, and there's like the Full Focus Planner from Michael Hyatt, and
mhm,
there are almost countless others. And I think at the end of the day, no matter which one you use, whether you use a resource I have available, which we can throw the link for in here somewhere, um, I think you have to get intentional about how you're using your time. And
mhm,
if you don't, other people will use it for you. And because it's such a
mhm,
valuable resource, and because you can't get any of it back, it really, really serves us to make the most of it. And that's where that flow of the river never stopping is always a constant reminder for me. I lost my dad really early.
mm,
I was 12 years old when he passed,
mm,
and he passed at the age of 51. And it gave me a real slap in the face lesson in the brevity of life, how much time we
mm,
actually have, which none of us really know what that is. It's like the bank account balance; you have no idea what it is,
mhm,
but you spend it nonetheless. So, I had started off with really just trying to get ideas and things out of my head. So I do a big brain dump list, and then
mhm,
I got refine it a little bit, so like let's put a list down here in some sort of order and categorize it. And then you know what you do is you just pick the easy stuff on the list to get a momentum
yeah,
starter, or you never get to the real things that move the needle, and there's so much there. So then I started saying, well, only gonna put a few things on the list each day, and I'm gonna number them of the order that
mm,
I'm actually gonna do them in. And that was a game changer. That was huge. Like if you can just start doing that, if you can just limit
yeah,
your things to do down to a handful and then number the actual order you're going to accomplish them in, you're less likely to just skip to the easy ones and never really get to the tough ones. You run out of time. And but then life started life, and it wasn't good enough because I would get distracted. I would get
mhm,
reactive. There'd be times that I wouldn't actually accomplish the things on the list. And my coach, I had a coach named Rob, and Rob got real with me one day, and Rob asked me, uh, if you really want to do this well, why don't you just actually write down what you're going to do all day, like say in half
mm,
hour chunks of time?
hmm,
And that seemed really daunting and really overburdensome, honestly. I'm like, "Really?
mhm,
I'm gonna write down every half hour." When you think about it, there's not that many half-hour chunks we have in our day outside of the sleeping time, and,
yeah,
I started giving it a shot, and I got so much more done, and I was able to
really?
skip all of the decision making between tasks, and it was just like, "Oh, at this time, I'm supposed to do this. I'm just gonna do it."
Huh.
And making the
Did you
plan
do
ahead
that
of
every
time.
morning?
I would do actually the night before I started doing it so I could sleep, so I could leave all of it out of my brain, and I couldn't turn my
Uh-huh,
entrepreneurial brain off until I did this, and it helped me catch so many things of like, "Ooh, I better prep this. Ooh, I should think about that. I'm
mm,
gonna need to actually build in time to put, some shoes on and leave the house. There's a commute involved here," that sort of stuff. And it was so
yeah,
effective that I was like, "You know what?" And then I started having kids, and we started sharing a shared calendar with my wife and trying to plan our lives together, And I was like, gosh, I got so much to do this week. I'm going to need to actually do this for the week. And that's where I started developing my
Mm,
flow of the week planner sheets that actually have me
mm,
mapping out what's important to me, my anchor things. I actually had it printed off with just family time blocked out.
mhm,
Mandatory 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. is family time. And I would just go ahead on Friday evenings and have a little meeting with myself and have the most enjoyable weekend because I didn't have to worry about
mm,
any of the work stuff. I know exactly what I'm
mm,
doing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And I've thought it through. I know who I have meetings with, and it flows. And that doesn't always goes perfect.
mm.
Sometimes I have to
Yeah.
circle stuff I miss or move things here and there. But the prep allows for the freedom and flexibility that work
Mm.
life integration really thrives on.
Do you have like a digital version of this that you use,
I'm
or
so
do you
glad you
write
asked.
it down? You actually write
So
it
glad you
down?
ask. So I do. I write it
Yeah,
down. I have a digital calendar. I have a Google Calendar. I share with my wife, and we put
yeah.
all this kids' sports stuff and all the meetings go on there, and my assistant schedules stuff like crazy on there. But the act of taking this time to meet with myself takes half hour. It's not a big deal. I actually
Yeah.
do. I map out, I take the mandatory meetings off of that digital calendar and I put them on there, and it makes me remember them in a different way or engage my brain with them in a
Mhm,
different way where I think about things I want to mention or I'll make little notes. And it just, again, lays that groundwork. It's almost like an athlete rehearsing the performance. And
mm,
I am able to see more of what I'm wanting to
mm,
accomplish out of that time and sometimes prioritize differently. Sometimes in that process, I'm like,
mhm,
you know what, it's too much. And I got to tell my assistant to move something, or I have to communicate with the family, hey, I'm going to need to miss something because this
mhm,
is that important. But it gives me a chance to communicate that and not just react. So
mm,
the analog digital hybrid that I
mhm,
find works best for me is to plan out ahead digitally, shared, your team members, your partner, your life partner,
mhm,
whoever it is, make that accessible, but then have this meeting with yourself where you actually put pen to paper and do some of the physical movements. Your brain will just engage
mm.
with it differently.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I run my life by my digital, like, by my Outlook
Oh, yeah.
calendar. It's like everything.
Yep.
But then I still have these days. Today's one of them, to be honest. Yesterday, I was, like, hyper focused. We all have this, I'm sure. "Oh,
Yep.
I got so much done today." And then the next day, you're like
It's that
and then you're like,
it's
"What
a
did
weird
I
paradigm.
do?
I remember my
What did
coach
I
Rob
do?"
talking about this. She's like, "You're gonna quit your job when you start your business. At some point, you're gonna walk into your office, your living room, or whatever, and realize that you can do whatever you wanna do to grow your
Yeah.
business today, but you're not gonna have any idea what to start with or where to go or how to like, it's almost more freedom than people are used to, and so this
Mhm.
gave me a way to think through that, so I had less of those moments where I'm wandering around the office or the house wondering what I should start with next.
Yeah.
You
It's
inevitably pick the wrong
definitely
thing when you're in that state. You almost never pick the right thing to work on at that point.
Oh, yeah, you definitely I like what you said about, like, you pick the easy things. That's
Mm.
definitely true, but the hard things that are uncomfortable, 1, maybe they just have to get done and they stink to do,
Oh,
or
yeah.
2, maybe it's the thing that actually will, like, move you and, like,
Mhm.
push you in a new way, and it's hard to, like, start,
It's true. You
but
can see the
it's
pattern. That's the
uncomfortable
other
to
thing about
start.
the analog thing, because
Mhm.
you get the dopamine hit of crossing that thing off, having accomplished
Yeah,
it, and it just fuels your limbic brain system to be like, "Ooh, let's do
yeah,
more of those." The intrinsic motivation it builds is good, but also you see the patterns of the stuff you
yeah,
missed, and you couldn't cross. I circle stuff.
yeah.
And then I start to recognize, you know what? I keep putting that hard task at the end of the day. I need to do it in the morning. I gotta shift where this goes,
Mhm.
or why is it that the same kind of stuff keeps getting circled? My sales calls, I don't know why, I always miss those, or whatever the uncomfortable is. It gives you
Yeah,
a chance to actually look at that obstacle within, right? We talked about the whoop.
yeah,
That's probably the thing to work on, talk to your coach about, talk to your business partner about, talk to your therapist about, whatever, but it puts it right in front of you. And somehow
yeah.
that
The
is,
woo.
it gives you some different insight, lets you separate from it a little bit and just get curious about like, huh, how come that keeps
Yeah,
getting missed?
yeah. Okay, the WHOOP. Recap for us again.
Yeah.
W stands
Wish,
for
wish,
wish.
yep. What do you want to have happen? Outcome,
Yeah,
vivid
outcome.
imagination, vivid depiction of that. I think it's
Okay,
most effective if you write a story about it. Then you have your obstacle within, the second
obstacle.
O,
Okay,
and then the plan. The plan usually comes in an
plan.
if-then sort of
Okay.
format. If I encounter this obstacle, then I will do this. If I
Okay.
feel like I've got imposter syndrome, or they're all going to find out that I'm not really as smart, good, whatever as they think I am, then I will read my recent customer reviews. Then I will have a meeting with a friend who I always feel better when I
Mm,
finish talking with them. Then I will, whatever the plan is, have it ahead of time, rehearsed out, just like an athlete
mm,
would have that moment in the marathon when their shoe is slipping off and their legs cramped
mhm,
up and they're thirsty and they want to quit and they got 6 more miles to go or whatever. What's going to be the plan then? I'm going
mm,
to think about my kid at the finish line. I'm going to think about
mhm,
the car ride home and how I want to think of myself. I want to think about beating the time I got last year and how much that'll mean to my progression. Whatever the plan is, um, you'll have it set. So you go there
yeah,
automatically.
yeah, love it. Whoop,
Whoop.
whoop,
It will
whoop.
statistically increase your chance of accomplishing your goal
Okay,
tremendously, and most all, it'll prevent you from self-sabotaging yourself by only imagining the outcome. If you only
okay.
imagine the finish line and how great it's gonna be to have that book finished, or, have that top sales goal met, or drop those inches, or stand on the podium, you're gonna actually demotivate yourself from accomplishing
Mm,
those things and make it harder. So you gotta have both
mm,
the story and the outcome, and also that plan and a recognition of the obstacle within, because that's what it's really all about. It's really all about the
yeah,
transformation. That's what any story is really about, is transforming.
yeah, love it. All right, well, Paul, if people wanna get in touch with you, follow
Yeah.
you online, get to know you a little bit more, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, well, if you want that time planning resource, you can go to tributarycoaching.com. It's free under the resources section there. And you can also get a complimentary coaching session to really get the best use of that time use planning sheet. And the other way is to, yeah, find me on all the socials everywhere. At tributarycoaching.com is my website.
Cool, and we'll drop those links too in the show notes and everything like that so people can go find Paul. I'm so happy that we met and,
Yeah,
are kind of in the same circle now in the coaching community, and just wanna thank you for your time, your wisdom. I think next time you see me, I might have Whoop on my wall in the back.
there
I
you
really
go.
like that a lot.
Yeah. Yep. That
Maybe I'll
is humongous.
paint a Whoop sign.
Whoop,
Um
whoop.
And I hope this has been a helpful episode, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And here is to your 2025. May you manifest and reach those goals you're looking to reach.
Here we go.